Well, here we go on a sopping wet Tuesday evening. Oh no, September's gone. The 1st of October, 2024, with a pod full of Saints when we reflect on the Saints' sad demise from the FA Cup, beaten 4-2 by Gorleston at Great Yarmouth on Saturday. And we get the views pretty soon of Jake. Evening, Jake.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everyone. A lot's changed in the last 6 days, hasn't it?
And we're smiling for some reason. Lee Wood.
It's wind, Tabs. Don't worry about it, mate. Carry on. Let's go.
But do you mind if I start with some holiday memories? Because, well, when we were kids, my brother Kim and I we were taken away with our parents every year to Great Yarmouth till, I don't know, about 15 or 16. And we walked with our dad every Saturday, every morning from Great Yarmouth along the beach, kicking a ball between us to Caister. We come back along the seawall and we take it nice and slowly, kicking this ball. And when I got to Yarmouth on Saturday, I was reminded of this. And then when I went inside the Wellesley Recreation Ground for the first hour or so, I was reminded of it again, a team going at walking pace, passing short, not looking to impose itself on the opposition one bit. But I'll let you two get stuck into a team before I do.
Did you happen to frequent the Pier Tavern whilst you were along the seafront there, Tabs? Because if you did, then you would have seen Mr. Ellacott and myself partaking in what can only be described as the butchery of karaoke in the afternoon. We had a good time, Jacob, did we not? Let's just, you know what? Let's make a pact. Just not talk about the football. Let's talk about what a great time we had in Yarmouth. There were drunken ladies, there were drunken men. The drinks were cheap. Beautiful. What a good time had by all until we got to the ground.
Yeah, I've heard tales about that karaoke. On Saturday, people were telling me it was so wonderful. Anyway, Wellesley Recreation Ground, Great Yarmouth Ground, not Gorleston because they haven't got one of their own at the moment. Got us a magnificent old stand, opened it, what was it, 1862, and nice wooden stand on the far side that goes a whole length, and you get this horrible running track. But still, it's great to visit a new ground for us. The team. David Noble forced to make one change. Zane Banton suspended. In came Romeo Akinola. Sam Denfield continued as manager with Joe Partington out injured and took his record as captain to 4 games, 1 draw, 3 defeats. And a sort of new face on the bench, George Hoddle, back on loan to the club from Cambridge United. We'll come on to that later on as well. And then on to the game. Gorleston went into it. It's a 6th FA Cup title season. Incredible. They're doing far better than that now in the league. Went into it on the back of 3 successive league defeats in Ishmael League North, 2 divisions below us, and that's a form, it's fair to say. But I really expected us to try and impose ourselves on them, say, look, we are the big boys. And instead, we tried to pass them out of the game early on, hoping they would run out of steam. They were too wise for that, or too fit. And no, we had a few chances, both Devfield and Sean Jeffers, I thought, should have scored early on with their chances. The keeper, was it Jessup, made a great save from Gio Rasula, tipping it over the top. But really, it was pedestrian, wasn't it?
Jake, heads or tails, mate?
Heads.
It's tails. Off you go, buddy.
No. Yeah, I talked about, actually, for some bizarre reason, I listened back to last week's episode, and we talked about in that previewing this game about how we just need to take control of the game early on, put our front foot on it, just not let Gorleston have it. And I said we had a couple of chances, but then it got to the 20-minute mark, and we just slowed so. I don't know what happened to us. I can't really describe. We were just so poor on the ball. We poor. I guess we were. We had the ball, but we didn't do anything with it. And then 20 minutes onwards, a couple of Saints fans were remarking about how it was almost like we'd come to see a Sunday league game with the quality of play and the speed it was being played at. And it just got worse and worse and worse, didn't it? They're 13th in the Ishmael North. We're bottom of the Conference South. That's not saying much, really. But to put in a performance like that against a team in that division, it is and was, frankly, embarrassing. Even by the end of the first half, it was embarrassing in terms of the way we'd approached and the fact we were behind.
Before you start, Lee, I met Rob Walkley there, our old photographer, a Eurostar driving club photographer who moved up to Norfolk about 6 years ago, and he now takes photographs for Sheringham and Liga, and he often sees Gorleston as well. And he expected us to win by 7 or 8. He was never that optimistic when he was watching us. So even someone who's up in that area expected us to get a resounding victory. Did you ever think it looked like it, Lee?
It was quite possibly the most humbling and humiliating result for us. I feel quite sorry for David Noble. You plan all week to go into a big cup tie. You can't really legislate for just how poor the players were on Saturday. They say that they're behind him. Oh, they're behind him, all right. They're ready to push him under this bus that's coming down the road, fellas, because that performance was absolutely criminal. Look, it's the gaps in between the defenders and then the subsequent gaps in between the defence and the midfield. It was absolutely shocking. David Noble come out in post-match, and you can see he was quite demoralised by it all, as he should be, and embarrassed. He come out and he said that he was a winner. Now, as a player, yeah, quite possibly, absolutely. But there's nothing in his body of work over the last 8 months that suggests he's a winner. He left us last January, I think, to take charge of Wealdstone. He almost got them relegated. He came back, and unless this situation that we've got right now is addressed, or there's a miraculous upsurge in form, he's going to get us relegated. Because I don't feel that that's how strongly people felt on Saturday. That's how strongly I feel. We need something to happen. We can't go along with this, tirade of excuses. And the players have to take. The players aren't exempt from this, by the way. If you can get rid of 4 or 5 of them, based on Saturday's performance, the club should. And I'm talking the big names as well, because those are the sort of players that you look up to when the chips are down and you're struggling, you're scratching around to find a goal or find a result from somewhere. On the whole, Tavs, it was embarrassing, as Jake said, humbling, humiliating. And something has to be done sharpish, mate, because if we carry this sort of mentality into our league form, it's going to be a long old season, mate.
I think we are already carrying it in. I'll come on to Nobby in a minute, because I want to stick with the game to start with. You just look at the goals conceded. Our record in the league, was it 12 goals conceded in 9 games? For a side that's bottom of the table, that's a pretty good record. We're not letting goals in left, right and centre. But still they get stick from Nobby after games. I thought his post-match interview actually was shocking. He didn't accept any of the blame at all, and he should have done. Your manager, Nobby, the buck stops with you. The fact that we didn't impose ourselves on Gorleston was the way players were told to. Just go out and pass and wear them down. That came from inside the dressing room. Whether the players didn't carry out what they're supposed to or not is another thing. But defensively, it was shocking, wasn't it? Jack James, that back pass, that's nothing to do with this modern passing, modern game passing back. But that was just an old-fashioned back pass that went astray. And you get those. Those errors happen. Could Michael Johnson have dived at his feet? You think, well, what's the point if he caught him and gone down, keeper off? What were the blooming rules are now? I don't know. But anyway, the guy stuck it away well. I was at Christy Finch, the first of his 3 goals. Second goal. Now that is modern football. Dan Bowie, ball comes over, cushions it down. No, it's like Phil Chinadu at Torquay the previous week. Again, the box just cushions a pass. No, you're a defender. Your job is to clear your lines. Get that ball out of there. Get it into Suffolk or wherever. Get it out of that ground. And no, he didn't do it, and Chindu didn't do it. Both of them cost us a goal. The third goal, what was that marking? I mean, Sean's back there. He's the nearest to it. He's not exactly the best marker in the ground. We're chasing that game. He should have been at the other end of the pitch, taking a couple of airs with him. He didn't pick the guy up, and he bundled it into the box. It was sold. Joe Jefford. And then the final one, the penalties. Got 3 players round him, and he jinxes his way through them and wins a penalty. I mean, it's comical. I mean, I think you mentioned Sunday League, didn't you, earlier, Jake? And that certainly was. But for our defence to play like that, it's totally out of character. So what we've seen so far this season, that's how the rest of the team have been playing. And what went wrong there? Just haven't got a clue.
It was.
He didn't match them, was he? Sorry, Blake, comment.
I was saying it was just bizarre, wasn't it? It was bizarre watching it. We equalised with that Josh Castiglione goal, which again, don't know how that really went in at the time. That was amazing watching that back. But then turned round and suddenly the Gorleston man's got an open net. All the defence are about 10 metres away from him. What's happened there? Why has that happened? Michael Johnson's come to claim. Why is no one listening to each other? And like you said, why isn't Darren Barry sent that out into the Pier Tavern? Why hasn't that gone there? You know, all these questions. And that penalty, didn't realise it at the time. But the defending for that is genuinely some of the worst defending I've ever seen in a Silver Cheek shirt from those three players. That was woeful. How the hell has that man got from where he has on the ball, seemed to work his way into the box? It's unbelievable. Like I said earlier, it was Sunday League defending from not just the defence, the whole team. The whole team are culpable. The substitutes that came on, the players that started, everyone in that team is culpable for that performance. Whether they scored or not, whether they had a decent display from the bench, don't care. You're all responsible for what was a shambles of display back to front. And we talk about the defence, but the whole team, it just wasn't gelling at all on Saturday, was it? There was nothing there, even after the two goals. Okay, we've got some chances, but we shouldn't be in that position. We shouldn't be chasing this game. We shouldn't be relying on Gorleston hacking a ball off the line with 10 minutes to go to try and get ourselves back into the game. Why are we in this position against an Ishmael North team? What the heck has happened?
Is it complacency? God knows. It's lack of concentration, that's for sure. And lack of commitment, lack of heart. You name it. You can chuck any accusation of those players Saturday and they can't argue against it.
Not one bit. And to be fair, we didn't even match them. We didn't even match them for, I mean, yes, okay, we were architects of our own downfall for quite a lot of it. And I think this is where we look at the situation now. Yes, the players were absolutely shambolic. And quite frankly, they got some words when they come over to collect the fans at the end of the game. David Noble is now a victim of circumstance in all of this, you know, because irrespective of what is going on the pitch, and Taz, you've alluded to it there already, mate. The passion, the drive, the tactics, the acquisition, you know, everything like that has come from the top down. Now, someone has got to take responsibility. And yet again, I don't see any reason that things are going to change anytime soon. Yes, okay, we may pick up the odd win, but it's going to be, you know, sandwiched in between a couple of really bad defeats because that's just the way it is at the minute. You don't see any of those players. The players there, I still believe, for my sins, they are good players. They are good players. Everything suggests they're good players, and they now have the platform to turn this around. And, you know, elevate themselves on and get us out of this. I don't know whether the same could be said for the manager. I don't know whether he's got that experience to get us out of this. What I would say, Gorleston, fair play. The fans were absolutely fantastic. And we deserved nothing out of that game. And I don't know whether it is arrogance or whether it's complacency, Taz. But one thing, mate, we got what we deserved. And it was absolutely nothing. Even, yeah, the pitch wasn't great. It maybe didn't suit our weight of football. But then these players, who we hold quite highly, should learn how to adapt to that sort of game situation. And we didn't. It was absolutely shambolic. And quite frankly, you know, someone has to be held account to it. And I'm looking now for a massive reaction come Saturday. Huge reaction.
I remember back in the summer, after every game, Twitter was saying on friendlies, good workout for the Saints, another good 90 minutes, this, that, and the other. And I was saying, no, we're not looking good. And it's been borne out. Here we are, 9 league games in, 3 points, out the FA Cup to a side, 2 divisions below us and struggling. There's been precious little to suggest what you're saying there, Lee, about these players we brought in and mixing with the ones we've got. They're a good side. But haven't shown that. Just in 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. They haven't shown it. And to me, we are carrying all our new signings except for David Longkeen. The others we are carrying. And unfortunately, I stick Gio on that list as well. This season is nowhere near the player he can be. And how much longer can we do it? And poor old Romeo Akinola, yeah, 2 years out of the game. So to come into this level and expect him to really turn it on is asking a lot. And it does need wholesale changes. If we are going to survive, you just can't keep saying it's going to come right. It's going to come right. It won't. We're into this losing mentality now. And I just think the longer we dither in changes in the dugout and on the pitch, the deeper we're going to get into trouble.
I think with regards to signings and new arrivals, something we can't argue, can we? Because the players haven't moved that. The results say at the minute that they are what you say. I agree with Lee. I think we made decent signings in summer, but unfortunately, they're not playing like it, and we're in a position we are, and there's no evidence otherwise. So we have to accept that at the minute. And if the players don't like what they're hearing from us and from fans, they have to prove that. They have to go out there and do that on the pitch. I think Romeo Akinola is a good point. I mean, how long he's been injured, hasn't he, for the last month or so, if not a little bit longer, after 2 years out. So to chuck him in straight away, play for a full 90 minutes, what were we really expecting? I think, again, that's poor management myself there. And just talking about David Noble there, I said this the other day to a few fans, that tactically, I thought we did get caught out. It wasn't just the players' performances, it was tactically as well. You know, we brought Charles on, that left the rest of the team exposed. We didn't think about the balance of the team when going for those more attacking changes. I know we were chasing the game, but it proved in the goals that they scored and the way we defended and the midfield didn't really battle. There was just no balance in that team. If there's no balance in that team, make a change. Why wasn't George Hoddle maybe brought on at half-time, potentially, to try and get something more in their midfield there? So I think it's not just the players. I think it is David Noble. I think we talked about he needs to step up. I think tactically we struggled. He has to take a huge chunk of responsibility for Saturday's performance as well. He can't just pretend it was all on the players. So yeah, a lot of question marks at the minute.
Jake, so asking you now then, mate, how long does the management team have now? I mean, are we looking, because there were some that we were talking to on Saturday who thinks he should have been gone now. And to be honest with you, there are some managers who have managed this great club who have gone for a lot less, you know. It's really hard. Does he get the Salisbury game? Does he get the month? You know, it's just a question of how long do you give it? And as Taz says, you know, we can't just keep kidding ourselves that it's gonna come better sooner or later. Something has to happen, and the games don't get any easier, because the thing is now, whatever happens, we've got to work so hard to get onto parity with everyone else. And that's just a little task within itself, let alone kickstarting the rest of the campaign, trying to get us up somewhere near mid-table, God forbid. So I think we're kidding ourselves. And I'm probably one of the biggest culprits of trying to play up our chances and play up the players we have at our disposal. They've been absolutely woeful. Absolutely woeful. They've probably performed over the course of the season so far equates to a game. You know, little spells here, 15 minutes here, halves here. But how long do you give him, mate?
And I think does this again, I think about a month ago we mentioned, is this a lack of leaders in this team? Is there no one in this team that is willing to step up on the pitch and take responsibility? I don't know. Is that harsh? It's hard to say for me.
You mentioned about supporters earlier, Jake. Go back to Torquay. We had 35 this season players, 62 last season in the middle of winter. We've had this long run of away games. 6 of the last 7 games, have been away from home, and they've been long trips. The last 3 have been to Suffolk, Devon and Norfolk. So it's maybe surprising, but our numbers, not surprising, our numbers are dropping away from home. Because on Saturday, yes, we had a fair few there, but I would say it was well down on what you would expect for City for a trip like that in the third round qualifying of the FA Cup. But that won't worry the club. We know that. They're not bothered about away games. They are only bothered when income is hit at home games. And for as long as we stay rooted to the foot of the table, then that is going to happen. It's going to happen quite soon, you would have thought. And if Nobby has not already gone by then, and I think he should be, then he will certainly go, because one of the owners in particular won't put up with losing income on match days.
Yeah, and it's a very valid point, Tabs. What I would say, the people who go to the away games, they're the same faces. These are the faces that have been following the Saints for years upon years and have, you know, built up that rapport. It takes a lot to translate that home form and the home fans, that base, into the away games on a regular basis. yeah, of course, the big games, the marquee games, your Hemmels and whatever, you're going to get a few more. Of course you are. But it doesn't help the fact we have been so bad over the course of the last 3 months. We have been playing absolutely atrociously, really, in comparison, given the promise, that we should show. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not as though our home form has been blinding this season. So, yeah, we did joke that the fact that we almost were sort of scared of playing at home, given the fact how bad it actually was our home form last year. So it's not that much better this time around. So Saturday I don't think we can stress it enough. It's absolutely massive on loads of different counts. It's huge for Nobby. It's huge for the club. It will give the club a real true indicator just how behind Nobby and the players, that the fans actually are. Because, the match day experience is one thing, but winning games is also another. And I think that's probably where my heart is. I don't want to see City at the bottom of the table. We're out of the cup. We're not scoring lots of goals. And, we are flattering to deceive on quite a lot of fronts at the minute.
One thing that did surprise me, I don't know if you felt the same as well. You're probably in the sandpit by then or running around the track. When the players belatedly came across, along with Nobby, after the game to the supporters in that corner of the ground, to me, they looked bemused at the response they were getting from supporters. And it wasn't all foul language. A lot of it was just go away, go away. And they looked bemused by it. But none of them, I didn't hear one of them hold hands, or see one of them hold hands up, say, sorry, we've let you down today. Nothing like that at all. The manager certainly didn't. And I thought that was disappointing because they need the fans on their side. And the performances are certainly not helping to do that. So they could have done a bit of PR themselves. It might not have made any difference.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. But what annoys me, either come over, like right over to us and have a chat and, we can, or just clap and applaud from the halfway line. You're sort of in that middle ground. Joe Partington sort of came over and tried to attempt to shepherd them all away as though they were getting dogs abuse. They honestly weren't. They weren't. I was there. But look, I don't really know what they expect. As you say, Tabs, the miles that these fans have clocked up over the past month, and not over the past month, the years, the seasons that have gone, these same fans, these same hardcore fans that have travelled up and down the breadth of this country supporting the Saints. And 9 times out of 10, you can take defeats on the chin, but this one really, really smacked because it wasn't forthcoming, and it just bewildering, not fitting of, the players we've got on the pitch. And everyone's going to keep telling us, oh, well, give it time. David Noble's, he's a philosopher of football and all of this. Time is running out. Time is running out. We need to start picking up wins. And I don't think anyone in their right mind looked at Saturday's game beforehand and think, well, you know what, I can't see us not winning here, surely, given the fact that Gorleston were where they are. Where do we go? I'm asking you, Tabs, where do we go? Because I don't think Noble walks. I think he has to be sacked in order for him to get out of the club. And I don't know. I mentioned it on socials on Saturday. When times are tough, you've got to be brave and you've got to be strong. And I don't know how strong and brave the owners are at this precise moment in time.
I'll come back to the management and the changes I think should happen in a minute. But Joe, you mentioned about Romeo Akinola, recently a month out, injured. I had a quick chat with George Hoddle's dad before the game, and he said George hasn't played for 6 months since he left us. So there's another one. In no way could he have been fully match fit. He'd been a lot fitter than ours because he'd have to do full-time training and whatnot. But it showed. That didn't look like the George Hoddle we saw last season when he came on. It didn't help he came onto a dispirited side by then. And you two suggested we might be getting George back last week. I think off air you said it. And you also suggested Glenn McConnell, where he's had injury problems again, but he is now fully fit. And this week he started training again with the first team. So there's a possibility he could go out on loan, but we're looking for Cambridge United to bail us out again for a second or third year running. But of course, they got their own problems at the bottom of the table, and the manager could be on thin ice there. Sounds a familiar theme, doesn't it?
Can I say then, Tabs, what is the point of bringing Hoddle in if he's so unfit? It's going to take him a good few games to get up to sort of scratch, as talented as he is, and without doubt one of the best players that have graced the park over the past few years. But surely we want a quality player coming in and hit the ground running now. We haven't got time to be carrying players, trying to get them up to fitness, because that's when they get injured even more sometimes. You've only got to look at what happens over the course of the last Ben Wyatt. We rushed him back, and now the poor guy's retired. We don't want that to happen to the likes of George. I don't see the point of getting him back because he's George Hoddle. I would have much rather had a player who was prepared to battle from the off. Because what's he here for? 28 days or something? It could take him 2 or 3 games to get up to speed and fit enough to actually make an impact, the sort of impact that we know he could have made this time last year. But it's just, Jake, does this come back to your poor management sort of ethos, where are you just getting him back because he's George Hoddle? I'm under pressure now. Do I get him back now to sort of perhaps sort of starve off a few of the naysayers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like Dave says, he does train full time, so maybe it won't be such an impact. But I think it is a genuine question. We are now reaching the point it is in the season, and I can't believe we're saying this. It's the first week of October, but the season is verging on going one way or the other. Is it total collapse, or is it going to be a revival of some sort? And we need players who are ready to go straight away, don't we? And hopefully George will be. Maybe he'll start on Saturday. Maybe our midfield will look totally different, and that'd be amazing. But as we said, second half on Saturday against Gorleston, he didn't look like he was quite ready, did he? And if he's not played a match in 6 months, there's going to be a bit of an adjustment there. And if it is only 28 days, there's no guarantee with the situation at Cambridge United. If Gary Monk does get the sack and they bring in a new man, they might want get George Hoddle back at the end of that 28 days, or we might get him for the rest of the season. So it's a bit of a gamble. I know it's great for the fans. It's a great boost for the club. It's great for morale. But we need players that are out there ready to go, put in 100% for the Saints, because we are, at the minute, we might not be at the end of the season. I hope not. But at the minute, we are in a bit of a scrap at the bottom that requires players that want to be out there playing for St Albans City.
Well, as you mentioned, George came off a bench as sub. Ken Charles also came off a bench. He's fit again. Scored with a good header. Well, that's close range, but still stuck it away well. And the other change was Sam Reitz coming on again. But you look at the rest of the bench. Jamie Head, all right, you got to have a goalkeeper, so Jamie's on the bench. That's fair enough. James Bone, Kieran Gauthier, yeah, he's fringe first team. Nick Ralph. I mean, how on earth were we so threadbare in the FA Cup tie? It's just ludicrous. You go back to the summer, to our poor recruitment. We lost a lot of players at the end of last season. Poor recruitment. Some of them are in the team at the moment, in my opinion. But we didn't build a squad. I know we said this before, but we didn't build a squad. And it stood out like a sore thumb on Saturday. You're looking at that bench. And who's going to really come on and strengthen us? Ken Charles, yeah, he may do. A fully fit George Hoddle, of course, will do match fit George Hoddle. But beyond that, you're really struggling. And I mean, Bone and Ralph, they're wasting their time being on the bench every week. I might as well be with the academy side. Talking of the academy side, what a fiasco Saturday. They got stuffed 6-2 by Coney Heath. St Albans City can't get a quality academy players to beat a village side like Coney Heath. We go down 6-2. What on earth is going on there? So you're looking at the whole structure of the club now and you think, oh, this doesn't look good. First team can't buy a win for anything. And the academy side, well, you're looking players there to come through and strengthen that squad. Saturday's result don't suggest so.
What a day for the sub. What a day for the club, eh? Brilliant. Absolutely blinding.
God.
I mean, listen, we could go over this, and we probably will do long after the pod has stopped recording. But the amount of questions and points that we've had been sent in, Jacob, from fans, some who were there, some who weren't there. But again, your view still matters. And it's very much based on how long has David Noble got?
Mm.
You've spoke about the game now, Tabs. Now I think it's up to you now to sort of really drive the narrative of how much time does the manager get? You know, because I think the owners have been religiously quite sort of pragmatic in how much time they give their managers. But I don't think they've ever had a situation where they've been in this position in the league out of the cup before October. Do you think the situation we find ourselves in now might change their mindset?
In many ways, a cup is irrelevant because any income you get from that, or any runs you get from that, is a bonus. It's the third successive year we've gone out to lower league opposition. We're not as good or as big as we think we are at all. In fact, I did a bit of research. Over the last 35 years, 8 times we've gone out to lower league opposition. That's not a great statistic, but it's better than losing the last 3 in a row, that's for sure. And also the cup, it's luck in many ways, but you want a good performance on the day. If you've gone out with your head held high, you're giving it all, fair enough. But we didn't, and we're certainly not doing it in the league. David Noble, all right, I'll move on to him now. In the summer, there was not wholesale support for his return. No two ways about it. The terraces, it was divided whether we should take him back. And even now, he's managed to make himself even more unpopular than Keir Starmer, which is quite an achievement. I think Nobby's got to go, sadly. As a player, he's up with the City greats. As a manager, he's down with the lowest of the low, unfortunately, at the moment. His first spell at the club was right, but you walk down mid-season, Nobby, you've damaged yourself. And to come back and be an absolute disaster. You look on the bench with him, John Meeks. I love occasional talks over John Meeks and Harry Wheeler. It doesn't happen often. But you look at their records as St Albans City managers. Absolutely dire as well. Personally, I think the whole of the coaching staff needs to go. The whole of it. The scouting team needs to go. Did we have a scout at Salisbury's match on Saturday when they went out of the FA Cup Saturday? Because we've got Salisbury this Saturday and we got Bath in a few weeks' time, so you could have watched both clubs. I hope they did, and not just sat at home looking at a video on Sunday of how that game went. The recruitment team as well. Get rid of all that. I'm sorry, but the club needs a whole clear out. Prove me wrong by winning the next 10 games, but that's the way I see it at the moment. The club is not stagnating, it's going backwards. And if the owners wait until income goes down from the various food outlets, booze outlets at Clarence Park before they make a move, it could be too late.
Going your point there, I think we had one of the club scouts was actually at the game at Gorleston on Saturday.
Why? Why is one of our scouts watching us?
Getting back to your point about Nobby, Jake and I were working our way through the second verse of Killing Me Softly, and I think we sort of discussed about the situation. Is Nobby's work now as a manager almost detracting from his time as a player? Is his stature as what he's done for the club, is it running out now? I mean, is it just the fact that he's doing himself a lot more harm by being here than he is good?
The trouble for Nobby, if he goes from here on the back of his record, as you mentioned earlier, his record over the last 8 months, you take in Willstone as well. Who on earth is going to touch him? He's just taken on this role of coaching with an academy. But beyond that, who's going to touch him?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. I think, Jake, I don't know whether you've got a viewpoint on this, but people said to us on Saturday, yeah, this was absolutely a demoralising defeat. It was rubbish and it was worse than that. And every expletive you expect from a load of drunken louts in a pub at Yarmouth on Saturday afternoon. But there's a serious point behind it, though, right? We've still got time. One person kept telling us, we've still got time. But how much time do you give someone that's shown nothing up until this point?
I think sorry, Dave. I'd say it's a really good point because we could easily be 9 points adrift this time next week or in another 2 weeks. We've got 2 huge, massive games coming up. And just how much time do we need? Because we will get cut adrift. We're already 6 points adrift. Could easily, teams like Enfield do have winnable games coming up. If we're not careful, it'll get much worse and worse. And then we will have a huge mountain to climb with tough fixtures and not so distant future. And if we do make a change with management, they're going to have to come in and hit the ground absolutely running, to be honest. If we do make that change, and if we don't, and if it's David Noble, he has to start winning games immediately. We have to win on Saturday. There's nothing else at the minute. He's got to win both for league position and to just try and save his position and try and give the fans something to cling on to.
Isn't it funny how Saturday, Wellesley Recreation Ground, that game mirrored the season. We went 2-1 down. We went 3-1 down. You're thinking, we're still half an hour to go. We've still got time. We can still turn this around. We can still get back into it. And that's how some people are looking at the league. Oh, we've still got time. We've still got time. When it comes to March, if you're still saying we've still got time, I think you've left it a bit late. And that was so similar to what happened on Saturday. Not that we had anything there that could really change it and change our fortunes.
We spoke about change, right? So everyone's, we're having the usual post-mortem in the pub. Who do we bring in? Who's available? Some people will not be in, some people will not be out. Ultimately, the way I'm feeling it is that just because you don't know how it's going to end doesn't mean you shouldn't change it. Because ultimately, we can just go along with this, the David Noble story. And as Jake said, it's going to go one way or the other. I'm not sure the owners are going to buy into that for particularly long because it's just not happening. It's not working. Whatever the project is, it's not working. And surely they can look at it with a fresh set of eyes and say, look, this is where we are. The players are underperforming. Good players that have, been invested in quite heavily. We've got this style of play that isn't working. We've got the formation that isn't working. You can't turn around to me and say that all of the previous 10 games or whatever it is, we were unlucky in all of them. It's not working. So I think they have to be brave. And I think they're going to be seriously reluctant to put more investment back into the squad, given how much they have put in at the start of the summer, or look elsewhere. And okay, Ross Jenkins has now gone back to Oxford, so we've missed the boat on him. Luke Garrard's gone back to Boreham Wood. We've missed the boat on him. Ironically, people have gone back to clubs, So now we're looking for we are looking for some fresh blood. If that's the way the owners are thinking, and this is where now the scouts are going to come in, and you absolutely know that Dean Austin's going to be hovering overhead sometime, chipping his 2 pennies worth in as well. So I don't want to use the word disaster because I think it's a long way from that, but it's really uncomfortable being a City fan at the minute because we go to games wanting to watch the players and cheer them on. And at the minute, the narrative is David Noble in or David Noble out.
Yeah, and I think we know which way the majority are thinking at the moment. I don't look at the forum, but I gather it's been people on there been venting their spleen. Have you two kept on top of it?
Yeah, plenty of people. I know it's fair to say, I think across all social media, it was exactly the same. It was, Saints fans on Facebook and Twitter, etc., all expressing an opinion of how upset they were. I think the vast majority, and at the minute it seems the vast majority of Saints fans are very unhappy with the situation and want to change, whatever that is. So there is a lot of voices out there. There's a lot of pressure on the club, on social media, and that, like Lee says, the game on Saturday, huge to hear how fans react and what it's going to be like. And we talk about the importance of the league, etc. When Ian Allinson got sacked, almost 2 years ago, actually, pretty exactly. We had 12 points in the league by that point. We weren't in a terrible position.
9 games, yeah.
There you go. So 12 points. And we also know how much the FA Cup money means to the club in terms of just helping things behind the scenes. So again, to lose out, and we've seen that Gorleston got quite a nice draw in the next round. So they have, a chance to get to the first round. That could have been us if we put in a much better display. So a lot of question marks, but it's reaching that point now. It's do or die, isn't it? If it isn't already, it is do or die in the next game or two in terms of David Noble and what's going to happen next, I think. I mean, are we going to, if who knows, we might get a miracle and get a scrappy point or scrappy win on Saturday.
Not good enough, buddy.
I think a scrappy win would be okay, but a point wouldn't be enough, would it? A point that probably would still be 6 points adrift.
We don't need points. We don't need 8 points. We need 3.
Yeah,
and we need 2 wins just to get us up to level. and that's with everyone else around us dropping points.
Yeah,
that is the severity of where we find ourselves. I'm going to start a campaign. Tavs for manager. It's got legs on it. I'm pretty sure. Fancy it, Tavs?
Well, given my record with the reserve team as a player, I think this is an excellent suggestion.
Which was?
And Steve Livingstone will get you up there as well. You can be assistant. Oh, well, we filled in one day down at Colchester. You don't need to know too many of the details.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the way that Dave's sacking everyone on this podcast, I think me and you, Lee, might be next. So,
mate, it's the cancel culture. Yeah, it's the cancel culture, mate. You wait. He'll have Tim Petty on here and someone else.
Right, a couple of other things. Did a bit on the referee before the game in last week's pod, and of course they changed it. It wasn't Josh Crofts, it was Christopher Darling from Cambridge. We've never had him before, and really that was a pretty easy game to manage, to referee, wasn't it? No bad fouls or anything. Penalty looked fair enough decision. So, there we go. And as for Gorleston, they've now won from the prize fund this season, £13,819, and they got more to come whether they win or lose in the final qualifying round. And now take this year is 5,250. Party! Not even a week's budget worth there. So watch the beer prices go up over the next week or so.
Speaking of beer prices, a little word of thanks to Harry, who kept young Jacob and myself well oiled throughout the course of Saturday afternoon in the Pier Tavern. Thank you for everyone for all their messages over the past week or so. Some of them have been quite fruity. I won't lie to you. So I think young Jacob's going to give you all the information you need if you wish to share your views on the pod.
Yeah, Podful of Saints on Twitter if you have to. I mean, do we? Let's not mention last week's predictions.
Well, we've got some views to chuck in. Somebody asked, how does this defeat rank? Most people comparing it to Ford United. I know it's before both of you. Under Jimmy Howard, another manager who was struggling, and he didn't need that. We had a shocking performance and defeat at Ford, lost 3-1. But they technically were only a couple of divisions below us, although it seemed pretty bad at the time. And he's got some other points here as well. With the club win this and bottom of the league now at the FA Cup, what needs to happen before the owners act? Will the club make the same mistake again? This is his words, not mine, and put John Meeks in charge to save money until the end of the season? Should they sack Nobby? Blah, blah, blah. And so it goes on. And I'm sure you've got more like that.
Yeah, you ask people's opinions, either saying you don't want to know them or what are we going to do? What needs to change? Because, or it's just time for change. A lot of people are saying that we can't go on like this. And I think that is a view that is shared again across the social media that I've seen, the club's tweets and responses. I think we had a couple of fans mention as well, next couple of games, if David Noble does stay, what does he need? And surely it's maximum points from the next 2 games, isn't it, in the league? But it's got to be maximum points on Saturday.
You'd have thought so. You mentioned Twitter in there. Another good day for Twitter last week. You mentioned Tafari Moore's 50th game for the club. Of course, he's played 56 times. And at last, they got the team out relatively early on Twitter, and they put the numbers on there for the first time in 3 games. But none of the players have got Christian names because we all know everybody's names, and we know the opposition players' names. It's ridiculous. Right, you mentioned the next 2 games. Yes, Salisbury, they went out the cup on Saturday. They've been blown hot and cold. Their first game at this level. It's got to be a City win. It has to be. And anything else, and the misery continues. Next 2 games you mentioned. Well, the second one is actually Hitchin Town next Tuesday in the Hearts Charity Cup at Topfield. They got one of our former Saints there, George Morrell. They've made a shocking start to the season. 9 league games, 4 points. 4 points. That's not shocking. That's utopia. There you go.
I think, given the fact how bad Saturday was, I think going into the Ian Ridley derby on Saturday, I think we really do need to be looking at a win, because I think anything else is just going to cement just the feeling of doom that has been set in over the last month or so, certainly. But given that, I mean, people can say, this was the point that people were making to us. We had a good point at West Ham. We got a good point at Torquay, and we won against Needham. So yeah, but But look where we are. It hasn't got us anywhere. Points are no good. We need 3 points. And it's, I just don't see a situation where we get those on a regular basis. So going into Saturday, I think it's got to be 3 points. Otherwise, there's got to be some serious conversation to be had in that boardroom after the game.
Yeah, you mentioned Ian Ridley there, Lee. For supporters who don't know, he was City chairman a couple of times. He connected to the club in that way. He was part of a consortium which included Steve Claridge, but got the Phoenix Club, Salisbury, back up and running about 12 years ago following the demise of Salisbury City. And Ian still lives in St Albans. I wish you well, Ian. There we go. Jake, before you do your bit, I've got one more sad bit to chuck in as usual. So make sure we finish on a down note, but we can't get much further down than we got today already, can we? Got news yesterday, or today rather. Bernard Clark, an old City supporter from the 1960s, followed the club donkey's years. Even when he moved to Lancashire, kept following the club. Been in touch with him this year by email. Sadly, he passed away, and his funeral took place yesterday. So, any Bernard's family around, we send our commiserations.
Well, you've set me up there, Dave. We have to do some predictions for this game.
Do we?
Yeah.
Because we were so bad at them last week.
I warned after the predictions last week how stupid we were going to look if we hadn't won.
We didn't look as stupid as half the players did, mate. So I think that's a little bit of solace to be taken from there.
Yeah, true.
Go on, then. Who wants to go first? Or shall I jump in? I don't mind.
Go on, Tabs. Off you go, buddy.
Super Saints. 1-0.
Oh, you've nicked my scoreline.
I'm sitting on your fence.
I'm going to go 2-1 Saints.
Oh. I'm going to go for a big, bold, brave 0-0.
No one's gone for a defeat. All this doom and gloom, and we've got complete faith in this team and the manager and the coaching staff and the scouts.
I think I wouldn't say it's faith. I think it's just the matter that how bad we are at predicting scores. And how little we know about football. So I think, to be honest with you, I think that's probably where we are, Taz, honestly.
That might be the issue.
I think that is exactly the issue, mate. Anyway.
Oh, dear. Well, as Lee said, we thank you all so much for all the tweets and comments.
Jake, it's going to be all right, mate. I mean, look at you. He's a broken man. Look what you've done to him, City. Look at him. Look.
I know. Anyway.
He's actually 17 years old. Look.
We'll win again one day. Don't know where. Don't know when. So we're thank you all for your comments, tweets, and everything. Hopefully we will win this Saturday. But we will speak to you again next week. Podful of Saints on Twitter, email description below, comment below what your thoughts and feelings are. And thank you all very much for watching and listening. We will speak to you again soon. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.